I was going to say before that it's not a Twitter-wide problem. It's a Silicon Valley-wide problem, as I understand it. Right now, what's happening there, and again, Brett, thanks for hipping me to this, is that it's akin to the time period in the United States pre all the laws against monopolization, where the big companies were accumulating and buying each other out, and there was not yet laws against doing that. So there was monopolies, there was price fixing, there was all this bad anti-capitalist stuff, and the government had to step in and begin regulating, which happened pretty steadily from Teddy Roosevelt through when dipshit fuckhead Ronald Reagan decided that in his addled brain that regulation was somehow bad, because who doesn't want tainted meat? Anyway, we don't have that right now in Silicon Valley. We don't have that with these companies. This shit is the Wild West, and it's run and managed mostly by these libertarian dudes like Jack Dorsey, he's not unique. He is emblematic of the larger viewpoint, as I understand it, of what goes on out there, which is why it's mostly dudes. It's mostly, they have this libertarian bent. And in my experience, again, anecdotally, these white guys who are libertarians like that tend not to be the greatest with women stuff. They tend to have problems a little bit, how they treat women. And that pervades the entire subculture out there. And there is no regulation on these things. So you have people like that in charge of what goes out on the platform, and they're pretty much indemnified. If Twitter could be sued because Jack Posobiec put something out there that's disinformation, it would vanish fucking tomorrow. But it can't be, because they say, we're not publishers. It's just freedom of speech, man. We're just doing our thing. It's just technology, man. It's punk, man. So that's the bullshit excuse. But the reality is that Zuckerberg and Dorsey and whoever owns Clubhouse and these things, they need to be on some way accountable of the stuff that goes out there, just like anybody else does. And if there's, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not a lawyer. I'm certainly not that kind of lawyer, but there is no regulation right now at all. And the rules that affect them do nothing. There's no financial incentive for them to clean this shit up. And that's the problem. If there was, it would be clean.
Right. That's a good point. Is that there's a financial incentive to have them. I use the example of like showing pornography on ABC at 10 o'clock or something like that.
Ratings would go up.
The rating. Certainly, there would be some trouble. There would be some trouble in Middle America with that, but you might get ratings to go up. Look, when we talk about so if you have somebody like a Mike Cernovich or something like that creating content for your site, okay. And you compare them to somebody like me, who I don't know how many thousand tweets I've done, thousands, maybe I've deleted a bunch. I don't know what the total is, but we're talking about these guys will tweet like 50 to 100 times. Cassandra Fairbanks, who is one of the people we mentioned in that in this analysis, I calculated to get to where she is, she tweeted 50, on average, 50 times a day. So it's not only that they hit nerves that keep people clicking, they are also dedicated to generating material for this platform. They will live on the platform. So it makes it's much harder for them to get rid of somebody who is keeping their stock up, quite frankly.
Well, Greg and me, we spend a lot of time on the Twitter.
You don't tweet 100 times. You don't tweet 100 times.
No.
And I think we got calculated in the Posobiec series, it was like 80 to 100 times a day over a span of 2 years.
Wow.
A day. And that includes retweets and whatever. Okay. Yeah. But this means wake up, Twitter. I hate to be his children. It's a really insane way to live, in my opinion. I hate being on Twitter, although I use it. Mm-hmm. They dedicate themselves to this platform. They do periscopes. They do when they're not tweeting. So you are asking them to also get rid of somebody who is dedicated to their brand, whereas many sane reporters have legitimate criticisms of this. So they're not going to want to listen to them. They're going to want to listen to the people who are flooding the site with content and keeping their business going.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you both are saying there, because the lack of regulation is fascinating considering the impact they've had. And let's go to this quote from Dorsey where he said, this is from the Rolling Stone interview that he did. We definitely help divide people. We definitely create isolation. We definitely make it easy for people to confirm their own bias. We've only given them one tool, which is to follow an account that will 90% confirm whatever bias you have. And it doesn't allow them to seek other perspectives. It contributes to tribalism, it contributes to nationalism, and it's counter to what we need the world to consider, which is, how do we solve the climate change? There's no country anywhere on the planet that's going to solve it alone. How do we solve AI taking all our jobs, or nuclear war? These are global conversations, and it's got to be pointed in that direction. Right now, it's pointed inwards. It's the first part of that is stunning to me, because he really is aware of what he's doing, but he doesn't seem to think it's very serious.
And then he's supporting Tulsi Gabbard in the thing, which is just
Just Tulsi Gabbard is a perfect example of what social media does or can do, I think, I guess, which is like, you have a whole crop of people who come from liberalism or have like liberal beliefs, stuff like that, who take that worldview, and once they filter it into the engagement machine, and it makes perfect sense that somebody like Dorsey would be interested in her. Once you filter it, then they start doing stuff. It's like, you look at like Michael Tracy, Glenn Greenwald, these types of people who like, not a fan. Okay, so but they once you start playing to the audience there, you see how the actual platform favors reactionary views, because you're going to start, like, when you're all about getting engagement, and those people I really believe are, I think they are, just dive in every day, like, let's get my engagement up. Let me say the thing that's going to get my engagement up. That's what they know how to do.
Right.
And you will tilt in a reactionary direction, because that is what is going to come off as profound. That's what's going to upset the user base,
right?
That Dorsey's user base. And like Tulsi Gabbard's politics are a perfect example of like engagement politics. If I start, okay, I'm a Democratic person, like whatever, and I'm like, okay, she went from being like aligned with some of Bernie Sanders' beliefs. I guess she had I shouldn't say that, because there was the Hindu nationalists, aligned with some of Bernie's talking points, and then gradually became more and more reactionary as she goes, because you are responding to the audience on Twitter will lap it up when you push buttons, and there's no better way to push buttons than to use reactionary talking points. And if I went out there on Twitter and I decided that I wanted to change who I was to make a living off of social media, the easiest way to do it would be to call myself like the based Arab or something like that, and then like start saying, right? No, seriously. And then just like start saying things that were like, that just questioned whatever the liberal common sense of the day was. And that's what Michael Tracy does. That's all he does. He is very limited in his ability as a writer. He can barely structure 800 words if you read him.
He can't even spell Tracy correctly, let's face it.
But he's very good at just like taking whatever's going to, piss people off, and whatever he views as the unsaid thing that day because of the liberal base of users on Twitter, and just poking them by saying the opposite. And that's how he's built up his following on the platform. It is a platform, and it is a medium that favors reactionary views, because those are the views that make Jack Dorsey.
Well, there's one more thing I just want to piggyback on that, because I also think that it must be acknowledged. I wake up very early in the morning. I'm up at 5:30. All this shit is trending early in the morning. Mm-hmm. When it's fucking lunchtime in Moscow. So I'm going to say it's lunchtime in Riyadh, and it's lunchtime in Moscow. And that's why, because these assholes tweet this shit, and it's boosted by botnets in those countries. I'm convinced of that. And there are times, there's at least once, that I sabotaged one of their fucking hashtags because I got up early enough and wrote something counter to what it was and used it, and enough people tweeted it that it blew up in their face. Yeah. I Luke Skywalkered that shit. But like, this is a game that they play. They do their shit, and then it gets amplified by all of these accounts in countries that are having their coffee while we're still sleeping.
That sounds like superficially like it could be like tinfoil hat or something like that, but it's not. It's actually demonstrably true. If you look at what happened with Macron leaks, for example, I mean, these are like bots that primarily came from Russia that promoted Jack Pozovic's tweets. And I was really a skeptic about some of that stuff until I started reporting on it. And then I'm like, okay, that's how it happened. That's how who is just publishing this gibberish, promoting this Russian intelligence hack, was going from 10 retweets to 1,000 and like that. I mean, it was largely automation. And you see these guys, some of these guys who, again, are Twitter characters. And Pozovic is always the first example that comes to mind. I think I calculated at one point during the Hunter Biden thing in which he was just absolutely blasting off on Twitter, like an average of 6,500 retweets per tweet over like a 6-tweet span in an hour.
Wow.
And I ask you, like, how, yeah, but I ask you, like, how many times do you like retweet the same person multiple times in an hour? We don't do it. Like, I may have retweeted twice about this appearance. I feel weird to like spam people with one, right? You selectively retweet friends and stuff like that. I retweet Hannah Gase a lot because she's my colleague and we're always DMing with each other on SPLC's work chat. That's a little bit, those type of things happen. But it's very rare that you just like keep retweeting your favorite person 6 times in a row. So who are these people? And the reality is it's a lot of automation, a lot of bots. I remember an Andy No repost of his video in which he was beaten, in which like there was like 39,000 retweets, some kind of insane thing 2 months after it was a hot topic. And then, so who were those people? Theoretically it could have happened, but I just didn't see it organically like in the wild on Twitter. I just saw the numbers.
Well, that's the fear, right? Is that they're leaning into one side of this debate, but really it's a civil war that we're having. Like they're putting so much emphasis on the right side that I don't know if that really is an accurate reflection of how many people really feel those things in the country. We think that there's 40%. Would there be 40% who support MAGA if we didn't have all these Twitter retweets and all this amplification going on Fox News and elsewhere? Probably not. This industrial scale information machine that's dividing America. And it's super serious. It's bringing us to the brink of the end of democracy. And yet we talk about Twitter like it's just a thing, but it's a part of this machine, it feels like, that's absolutely tearing this country apart.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll be right back, because Greg and I have something to talk about, and you get a few minutes, Michael, to hang out. So guess what, Greg? Free bacon.
It's Moink time.
Free bacon for a year. So do you like bacon, or are you a steak person? Which are you?
We've covered this. I'm a steak person. I'm more of a steak person.
You are more of a steak person, and you ought to be more of a steak person. And it's Moo and Oink, by the way. I discovered that's how they came up with the name. It's Moo, Oink, Moink. They deliver grass-fed and grass-finished beef and lamb, pastured pork and chicken, and wild-caught Alaskan salmon direct to your door, helping family farmers become financially independent outside of big agriculture. Their animals are raised outdoors, their fish swim wild in the ocean, and Moink meat is free of antibiotics, hormones, sugar, and all the other junk you find in prepackaged in the meat aisle. Sign up to moinkbox.com. That's moinkbox.com/narrative to get a year of bacon for free. And then pick what meats you want delivered with your first box. And then you can change that every month or cancel at any time.
I since last time we did this, I did a little more research on this, and I got the box. The New York strip steak, Zev. Do you like New York strip steak? Some people prefer these big porterhouse. I like a New York strip. Okay. And you can't go to the store and buy stuff like this because the meat here is not the supermarkets don't get the good stuff. Right. So it's important. If you want good steak, you have to do it this way. Sorry. It's just,
you got the box and what's in the box? Just lots of good meats.
It's good stuff, man. It's like there's pork, there's steaks, there's cuts of meat and the bacon. So that's good stuff.
That's really good. By the way, Moink was founded by an 8th generation farmer who was featured on Shark Tank. I watched the episode. She's great. I really like her. And host Kevin O'Leary said it's the best bacon he's ever tasted. Have you tasted the bacon yet?
Yeah, it's good.
It's also good.
You got to fry it correctly, but right. Yes.
Always. And James Siminoff, the creator of the Ring video doorbell, invested in Moink. They guarantee you'll say, Oink, I'm just so happy I got Moinked.
Is it what? So it's the 8th generation farmer. Was the 9th generation back not a farmer? Like, how does that work? That's I don't know how that works, but it's good. There's obviously something in the DNA is good because this is good stuff. Really.
You know, they really are fighting to keep the local farmers viable in America, so they're a really good buy. Join the Moink movement today. Go to moinkbox.com/narrative, N-A-R-A-T-I-V right now, and listeners to the show get free bacon for a year. That's 1 year of the best bacon you'll ever taste, but for a limited time. Spelled Moink, M-O-I-N-K, box.com/narrative. That's moinkbox.com/narrative. The way we spell narrative, N-A-R-A-T-I-V. Oh, there you go. I want to try some of that. You're going to send me some. Will you please?
I'll send you some. That's good.
All right,
That's good.
okay.
That's good.
There you go. Let's get Michael back in here. Are you baking the steak, Mr. Michael?
I apologize. I hope I'm not bad for the thing, but I'm actually a pescatarian, so I apologize.
They have fish too. They've got
fish. They have
salmon.
good fish.
You know.
Oh, okay. I'm still.
And you know how salmon is. You get the salmon at the supermarket. It's like got weird color and
That's true. I've actually been grilling a lot of fish this year, barbecuing tuna steaks and things like that. So I should have been worked out pretty well.
A lot of home cooking.
Yeah. Salmon tinfoil grill is your friend. That's it. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. All right. I'm interested in that.
What's going to happen here? I mean, Twitter's obviously very powerful. We've got this incredible divisive machine that's driving a wedge through the country. We're heading into another election where the wedge is going to get even wider. Do you think that Twitter's going to change? Is there even a possibility that Twitter's going to change the way it views things?
So I guess as a person who is focused on making those changes, or letting those changes happen, I don't want to close the door on it. Let's put it this way. I'm not impressed that they suspended Nick Fuentes today. I'm relieved more than anything else, but I'm not like, oh, wow, okay, they're really going to change. I don't believe that. As I said, they made these people, right? And that's worse than anything else. They created them from scratch. So the answer is, I hold out a little bit of hope, but the only way for that to happen is the country has to change to such a degree that they feel like they can't get away with it anymore. I think. And that's really it. I don't feel like the leadership team itself is going to, they don't want to admit that any of their critics are right. That's the first thing. Right. I know that Twitter tried to would love to sell. I'm sure they'd love to get rid of their product by now, get it out of his hands. Dorsey would much rather focus on Bitcoin and Square and stuff. This must be a huge hassle. And you're getting SPLC is yelling at you at the same day that Trump is suing you. It's like, who wants this? You just take your money and run. That's what I would do. So it's possible that new leadership, they could sell it, and possibly that it might change in some way there. But what I would really love, and this is some real utopian bullshit, I would really love to have it be replaced by a different platform for journalists, one in which the journalists could reach people without some of these problems. And then the fear of that is that maybe that these bells and whistles, these extremists or whatever, bring more people to the thing and keep people clicking. And maybe journalism is a dying industry. It's something that focused on just getting the content to people would fail. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. This is not easy. I have to give Jack Dorsey some credit because he's made a very successful product that many people are addicted to. He's a smart guy. There's no doubt about it.
Tearing the country apart, though.
Yes, of course. So what I love, I don't care about my followers on Twitter. I'd love for it to be meaningless, the followers. I'd love to have a different platform in which we can report these things out and get them shared and get them seen by people. And the biggest thing you get from Twitter, right? When I do my stories, and it really helps somebody who's in a rights group like SPLC, is that journalists see it, right? I remember when I did the Stephen Miller investigation on Stephen Miller's emails, and I put so much work into it and so much heart into it, that I think AOC was the first person to retweet it. That was big person who got it going. And I cried, man. I was I seriously did. I was because I'd worked for so long and no major publications wanted to join up with us. The Guardian did, actually. Kudos to them. But nobody did. Everybody was just no. And I had so much emotion invested in it. I couldn't sleep because I was worried about what could happen. There's a lot of anxiety. It was a big story for me. And Twitter really helped. It got that going. And by that night, New York Times had written it up and Washington Post had written it up. And then there was coverage on MSNBC and there was all this stuff. That wouldn't have happened without Twitter.
Right.
So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. There's got to be, Twitter will probably, I'm sure, argue to me, you like that. This is the way it is. This is, if you want that, you have to have that. I would like my utopian vision would be something where we can actually reach people with reporting, serious reporting, and not be hijacked by the post-millennial. Do you know what the post-millennial is?
No.
Oh my God. It's like this Canadian junk news website. It's co-founded by somebody who worked for Russia Insider, of course. And it's like they run one source stories on Posobiec tweets. And it is
that kind of thing. Yeah.
Jared Holt did some reporting on them, found that they actually paid people $5 a post. Like, just what? Like, I once got into an argument because they were really defaming me in a thing. They had an extremist write an article about me and Luke. And I got into a shouting match with them on like over the phone about it. And I was like, these are a bunch of kids. These are like 21-year-old kids in an apartment. Who knows who's funding this crap? And on Twitter, it is given equal weight to the very seriously reported investigation in Los Angeles Times or whatever. There's got to be a way to get serious reporting to people and get it seen widely like it is on Twitter without this horror.
The equalization is quite good, though. To argue the flip side of that is it's good that a small company or a small publication like Narativ can get to a wider audience. That's really helpful. But you're right. Ultimately, you can get a lot of junk in here.
I'm talking about this post-millennial publishes literal disinformation. You're not doing that. That's I want to clarify what I'm saying here.
Yeah,
independent. I don't want it to. I also include independent journalists there. I'm not talking about just the LA Times which is the example I mentioned, or whatever. Independent journalists do essential work. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there has to be some sort of editorial oversight that helps give real things real credit rather than this just explosion of bad information, which is what Twitter really is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The gatekeepers.
Well, the three of us could probably walk in there and do a nice diagram for Jack, showing him who the key players are that he should probably right now, and would probably end a lot of the conflict we'd have in the country politically, because we can prove to him that they're disinformation agents or whatever.
He doesn't care, though.
He doesn't care.
The problem, Zev, if I may, I know we got to wrap it up, but again, shout out Brett Petticourt. The problem here is we need laws. We need Congress to figure out how to regulate Twitter and Facebook and all social media so that this shit that goes on the platforms, so that those companies are held accountable for it, especially in a verified account. If a verified guy like Posobiec or Cernovich posts something that's demonstrably untrue and results in someone getting hurt or defamed or whatever, the platform that allowed the post to stay should be liable for damages for that.
Right. That's
what needs to happen. They need to figure it out. And unfortunately, a lot of the people in Congress don't understand it. I don't know that Chuck Grassley or Dianne Feinstein are going to be so great with the new tech there aren't that many people on Capitol Hill who even understand what the problem is and how to fix it. So that's also part of the problem. We have to figure out what the laws should even be, what they should look like, how they would work, and make the members of Congress understand it enough to craft the laws to pass them. That's the thing that needs to happen.
Well, we would also need to start passing laws in this country. That's also part of the problem.
Well, that's true.
On that note, we can't solve that problem. We should mention LB's off tonight because she's still not got her voice back, but you can definitely catch her on The World Beneath, where some guy named Greg Oliar is the guest this week, I think. Is that correct?
And she's the guest on my show. There's a lot of Greg and LB talking.
Like
if you're missed Greg and LB talking, this is a good week for you.
So even though she's not here tonight, you can catch up with her there and all of Greg and LB's crossover mega experience this week on
it's like when Marvel and DC, when Spider-Man and Batman are together. Yeah,
it's amazing. And that's the show for tonight. We'll be back on Tuesday. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you, Michael Edison Hayden, for being here tonight from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Great piece, and we'll keep following the story, and we'll see you again soon. Narativ is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/Narativ.